Hello, everyone, and welcome to KSO Front Row, the Kamloops Symphony's web series that brings you up close right from your very own home or wherever you might be watching this. My name is Daniel Mills, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kamloops Symphony. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm presently speaking from the Tecumloops Te Secwepemc within the unceded traditional lands of the Secwepemc Nation, and I'd also like to acknowledge all of the native lands on which we are gathered across the globe. We are very grateful to be spread out over such a beautiful planet that we can call home. Before I introduce the two guests of today's session, I do want to offer a few thank yous. Of course, we want to thank our public funders, the Canada Council for the Arts and Government of Canada, the BC Arts Council and Government of British Columbia, and of course the City of Kamloops for their continued support. As well, thank you to all our donors, sponsors, and volunteers who have been so generous to our organization throughout this time. And all of you are helping ensure we're here to continue providing relevant and engaging programming for the community. As you may know, as of today, the Symphony has two different concert experiences currently available online. The first is Charlie Parker with Strings, featuring a recreation of iconic tunes from jazz legend himself. And the second, which you probably are aware of, but if you're on this right now, is, of course, Voilà Viola. In addition, we have several other initiatives that will be launched over the next few months, including a collaboration with the Kamloops Art Gallery and our final concert experience of our reimagined 2021 season. So please do keep your eyes peeled for further activities. Now, about today. Today's session is meant to be interactive, so if you are watching it live, we welcome you to submit your questions in the live chat feature on YouTube or Facebook, and we'll try to get to them as we go or during our dedicated Q&A session at the end. Thanks in advance to my colleague Ryan, who's editing this on the go behind the scenes and ensuring it runs so smoothly. So, as mentioned, today's session features two guests. The first you typically see on our podium, on the screen, and in concert when we have live concerts, of course, and that is our very own music director, Dina Gilbert. Welcome, Dina.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Dina. How are you doing?
Super well.
Good. I mean, every time we do one of these, I say hi, even though I feel like I talk to you pretty much every day. But how are things in Montreal today?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really looking forward to speak with Marina, since it's been such a great collaboration. So I hope people will get super interested about her unique artistic profile and career.
Excellent. Well, speaking of Marina, I now have a little bit of a bio for her, and this is just some highlights about her and her career to date. So Marina Thibeault is one of Canada's most sought-after viola soloists. She has performed all across the country, the continent, and the world, both as a soloist and chamber musician. She has won numerous prizes and garnered several accolades, including her album Elle, which was released a few years ago, which features works with several groundbreaking women composers, was nominated for the Best Classical Solo or Chamber Album Juno in 2020. Very impressive. She has degrees from the Curtis Institute of Music, McGill University, and studied at the Conservatorio della Svizzera Italiana. I probably said that terribly, but there it is. And she has received instruction from many of the world's leading violists. And as of this past year, Marina was appointed as a professor of viola and chamber music at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. So we are lucky enough to have her here in BC now. And outside of her pursuits on the viola, Marina is a mother of two children, and a certified yoga instructor, and has several other hobbies and interests that we'll surely talk about today. So I'll leave it at there. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the screen Marina Thibeault.
Hello.
Nice to see you again, Marina. I know it's been a few weeks since you were here in Kamloops, but
likewise.
You're speaking from Vancouver, correct?
Exactly. I'm having a glorious view right now with the sun shining. So not a typical rainy Vancouver day.
Excellent. Well, I will leave you two to have your conversations. I look forward to hearing what you have to say and where the conversation goes. So thanks and have a great session.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hi, Marina. Good to see you. And good sense of your landscape now. It looks like it's you're having a way better view than I do. Oh, could we? Oh, wow.
Just Cypress Mountain for you.
My God. Yeah.
It's my favorite move to show off my view. That's all I do all day on Zoom.
Okay, so now we call you just to be able to see this view once in a while. Wow, that's beautiful. So thank you so much for taking some time with us. I know you're having a really busy, hectic, crazy schedule, so taking that extra time with us is a privilege.
It's a privilege for me because it's time off from the children. So it's kind of like a nice break. Thank you.
So they won't know, right?
Well, if they barge in, we'll introduce them.
So actually, you're speaking about children and everything. And are they already starting music? Are they curious about the profession of their mother?
Absolutely. I mean, I never stopped performing. So for them, it's really normal what I do. Even when I was pregnant, I would play until I was 8 months and a half, both times.
I recall because one concert we did together in the OSM Classical Spree or Summer Festival, I saw you. You were there, and I was, oh my God, she could like.
That was the very last one. That was the first time that I played the recital sitting down. But I was very big, and I remember I even hit my bow. I hit my belly with my bow at one point. I was just like, okay, time to stop.
Yeah, I remember how impressed I was by you being there, having to perform. How many
concerts? I get restless at home, and I think my kids, they feel that. Like, they see that I'm really happy about what I do, and that when I go away, I often get separation anxiety. Like right before I went to Kamloops, it had been a while that I had taken a trip. Right, the last time was in November to go to Montreal, and each time it tears my heart apart. Each time I'm away, but actually once I'm there, I don't want to come back.
Because then you have that space for music, I guess.
Yeah, and the kids, to answer your initial question, they have one viola to share. So it's the smallest violin and viola string. So they don't know anything about violin. Everything in their life is viola.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they don't even know what's a violin. So, like, they don't care for
so
it.
Actually, that would be one of my questions, because usually you don't necessarily start at the viola. It's quite rare someone starts right away on the viola, because people will start on the violin first. So how did music get into your in your life? Was your parents were I know you've been growing up in Quebec City. Did you have parents or family that were musicians? So how did you been in touch with music in your early age?
My father was in a rock band. They played a lot in Montreal at the Foufoune Électrique, which is a really nice space for emerging indie bands. So he had perfect pitch. He was extremely talented. I see some people in the comments know the Foufoune.
Foufoune Électrique, yes, it's quite
it means the electric bums.
Exactly, the translation is white. That's why I was to say, should we say the translation or not?
Yeah, why not? But yeah, and so he was extremely talented. He never had the support from his family. My family is from Charlevoix, which is 1 hour up north Quebec City, and they didn't have the resources nor the support to follow their dreams. My mom also played the guitar a bit. So apparently I had a great grandfather who was a fiddler, but never met him. So I initially wanted to play music because my neighbor was playing folk tunes on his balcony. And I remember bringing my plastic chair in the backyard and just watching him for 2-3 hours without stopping. And my parents thought that was odd for like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old to just sit still for hours. And so there was definitely an interest. And one Christmas, they gave me a violin, but there was not the bow because they said they could only afford the violin. And so I was like just jamming by myself, like a pizzicato. And then later on, they brought the bow as a joke. So that was a relief.
Wow.
But then I started right away playing folk music and playing old French tunes. And like after a few months, I was doing public appearance of playing at my family's events and making them dance, or, you know, playing a love song for my grandparents' 50th anniversary of wedding. So already like music right away became a stream to connect with people and to make people happy.
And do you recall, for example, as a kid, I mean, sometimes we don't like to practice our regular schedule or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know, in your case, how was it since you've been so inspired by music? Was it just normal? Did you have that kind of discipline already from your early age? Or, of course, was it coming from your mentors or your parents and so on?
My mom is really good with time management. And now that I'm researching a lot of sports psychology, I realized that she gave me so much from the get-go about how to build a healthy practicing routine. And I had also like really good pedagogues early on that would say like she needs 1 day off a week.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and so I was, when I entered the conservatoire at 9, already there was the day off implemented. And so on that day, I remember I always missed music. I missed the craft, like I missed the actions, the motions, I missed the vibrations on my collarbones. Like I missed it. So the next day, it was not difficult. And I was a very intense child, like lots of emotion, lots of outbursts, you know, like always getting into trouble. And so thank God that I had the music, because otherwise I think I could have really shifted to the dark side. And music kept me on track, because all these boiling emotions, I could just channel them in my music making. And the practicing kind of like gave me this soldier process, you know, to keep focused and concentrated. And that really helped me just to be a human. So I didn't want to stop, because I needed it to stay balanced.
And when was that turning point in which you had to transfer from violin to viola? Was it just natural? I mean, some people, it's by the richness of the color of the sound. Yeah. Sometimes because you're way ahead of your colleagues in your orchestra, therefore we are looking for another challenge. So what was your path towards going to viola?
There was no violist in my orchestra. There was no violists that were playing alone, so that I could hear them. When I was 14, 15, at the Projet, I heard Bruno Giorana, who was my teacher at the Conservatorio della Svizzera Italiana, the name that Daniel said perfectly. And when I heard him play the Brahms sonatas, first of all, I felt like, okay, it's the first time I'm hearing Brahms, like real Brahms. And I was seeing the phrasing, like the register was delivered in and the color it was delivered, it spoke to me much more than the violin. And so, of course, the ultimate dream is always to play the cello, right? It's the best instrument. But switching from violin to cello was not so organic. So I could get a hybrid version of my dreams into the viola. And so I asked my violin teacher, I said, listen, I kind of tried this viola thing over the summer and I kind of like it. And then she said, well, you should do like me and marry a violist, but you shouldn't play viola, because I was quite good at the violin. I wasn't like, I was doing well, but I never wanted to practice on the E string. I was avoiding it. I hated it. It hurt my ear. And I was never like drawn into playing Tchaikovsky concerto or Mendelssohn concerto. I wanted to play Stravinsky. I wanted to play, really obscure, the Bartók violin sonata. Like I was the 14-year-old who wanted to do the weird rep. And I remember like finding the Milo violin concerto and realizing there were not too many recordings, so I wanted to make one, so already I was really a violist. I mean, I just had the wrong instruments in my hands. And when she told me that advice about like the marriage, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna play viola.
That's not a wise choice, I'm sure.
Well, I told you I was very intense, so I never looked back.
And how old were you at that time?
15.
15. Okay. And from that point on, it was okay. I'm a viola.
Only viola. It was a statement. Yeah, it was a statement, but that also was like a personality thing. It was very much more suitable.
And why do you feel that? Because you mentioned, of course, the repertoire. There's way more repertoire for the violin. It's way more exposed, more well known, and the viola is such an important instrument as part, of course, of the string family into an orchestra, has beautiful lines and everything. But for people, how could you convince them about discovering more repertoire and more about...
I remember my mom, she was on the fence when I said I'm going to play viola. She was like, I kind of like your Saint-Saëns Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso. She was not ready to let go of that glamorous lifestyle. And then when I started playing the Walton, she was kind of like... but I love convincing people, and that's all I do all day in discussions with producers or with my agent or with people like you. Like initially we had thought maybe let's ease the viola into this program with Telemann or Brook, not to scare people off, but we went bold with the Vasque.
But I love the Vasque so much. I would never look back for any kind of
exactly. But I feel like my whole life duty is to first introduce the instrument, and then like amplify it and order music for it. Like commission. And early on, at the age of 16, I had played viola 1 year. I had already my first commission.
Wow.
And so I knew that's what I wanted to put the viola on the map in Canada, because besides Stephen Dan or Rivka Golani, I had no examples in Canada. There were lots in the States, lots in Europe, but I wanted to kind of défricher. I don't know how to say in English.
But it's the way you've been also such a rising star in Quebec and in Canada as well, because you've been able to convince that many people and being that superstar as much as any violinist and pianist that we see more often, of course. And that's what I've been admiring. You've been in so many different lists of 30 young musicians under 30 years old, and Révélation, Radio-Canada. I mean, so many different important lists in which you could make Discover Viola. I'm sure, I mean, I can see totally your path and your regarding this, but you're perfectly aligned on it. And so to see for me right now where you are at with it, I mean, it's going to be unbelievable in 20 years and 30 years from now, how everything you will be achieving in this way, I'm sure.
It's really, I'm so grateful that you're saying this. Thank you, because that extra challenge for me makes it even more worth it. To be like, it's not enough to be good. I have this extra challenge that really drives me, and I'm doing it all for my instrument. It's such a selfless goal. Actually, it's just for the advancement of my instrument. And then I know that once I can't play as well when I'll be old, someone will do it better than me, and I can't wait. They're already the young ones, they play for me, and I'm like, yes, they're dangerous. I love it. They're sounding great. The viola is already not in the same place as 5 years ago. It's changing so rapidly.
True. There's something I also admire from your path as a musician. It's the way that, of course, musicianship is there, personality is there, but also your commitment regarding wellness, sports psychology for musicians. And also, if you could please share with our audience the parenthesis you had. I mean, I'm saying parenthesis, but it's still part of your life, but the yoga training you've had at one point, and how it's been, I'm assuming, changing the way you are performing or living or being an artist today. Could you please share a little bit about this particularity you have as an artist?
Dina, you put your finger on it. It changed my way of living. I remember after my brother passed away, so it was due to a trauma that when I lived in Philadelphia, I was away from home. I just saw my brother die, like in our arms. It was so tragic. And I went back to Curtis and I felt completely lost. And when I arrived, they said, okay, take the exams and, like catch up everything. And I felt so stressed. I couldn't breathe. Like even talking about it today, it always triggers back some memory. And it's, and then they sent me to see a health professional. They prescribed a bunch of medications to me for the post-traumatic disorder, stress disorder. And so I was like, okay, I can't be 19 and needing all this. Of course, there's stigma around mental health and so on. So as I walked after my appointment, I passed this Bikram yoga, hot yoga studio. And being the intense person that I am, I walked in, I saw there's a 30-day challenge. And I was like, okay, I was wearing jeans. And I said, sign me up. And I went for my first, I nearly died of hotness because I was wearing jeans in a 40 Celsius.
And of course, you decided to start right away.
I had to start there. Yeah, it was there. And then I had to be back the next day and for 30 days. And it was such a crazy time at Curtis because I remember I was principal of the opera during this month, and we had rehearsals all the time. And so sometimes I could only go at 5 a.m, and I would wake up, I would go, and I healed myself this way. So I saw also how much I was performing better. Because I had some solo performances, I had some auditions, and And suddenly I was winning everything and I was finishing first, not second. Wow. I was playing like I wanted. I was breathing with the music. And so I thought, okay, there's something to this. And then I kept going at it. And so that was at 19. And then maybe when I was 22, I had another life crisis. I lost my father. And so I was just then becoming to play, I was guest principal of Les Violons du Roi. Some really great things was happening. And I just went off the face of the earth. I moved to an ashram for my own health, to take care of myself and to learn how to be a human and just act normal. So this is like, it's very much related to personal experiences that I needed to heal. Mm-hmm. And then seeing that not only I'm feeling better, but actually my playing is much better. And then I started implementing it in scholarly research. And I published my first article in 2014 about mindfulness in music. And now I'm diving into the topic of sports psychology because I've been, researching that more in the past 5 years. So connecting all it's related to is mindfulness. Mm-hmm. Whether it's sports psychology, yoga, meditation, qigong, running, they all have one thing in common, is that you're focused on one thing in that moment. And that's what music is.
And the present moment as well. This is something that I feel so important to music making. And I could feel right away when we're speaking together, of course, detailed and everything when we are rehearsing and so on. But when we were committing to, okay, we are leaving the rehearsal, we're leaving the concert, I could feel that special touch right away with you about we're there in the present moment. And I felt it was such the perfect way to communicate with the soloist, I have to say. So for me, it's been super great because I don't have, of course, your experience regarding yoga and so on. Meditation, I'm doing every day because I feel it's super important, and this is also centering me. But yeah, I could see that kind of, even looking at now, you're speaking about breathing with the music, we can see it on the images when we look at the concert that people can watch, of course, until May 22nd. So I totally thank you so much for sharing all this, because I feel that this shows how much being an artist is also living life fully, right? And sometimes we're so stuck about, okay, we need to have this technique, and we don't get the big picture. We don't get about we are supposed to share emotions. We are supposed to share emotions from humans. But if we are not humans anymore and we are just separated physically, mentally, with our soul and everything, then we are disconnected. So how can the message get through our audience, I feel? So with the way you're telling us, it sounds so clearly there. And I guess I will want to step into 30 days yoga challenge now.
And after I completed the 30 days, I did another one back to back, because I felt like, I still needed, it was like my pill, it was like brushing my teeth. It was essential. Mm-hmm. But it takes two to tango, Dina. And I really felt connected when we were rehearsing, and I could feel you had this mindfulness practice. And I could feel from the musicians too. And I was reading some of the musicians' bio, and I know that the principal cellist also has this habit of, and then being a violist, I'm always connecting with some of the lowest voices, right? So I felt there was many elements as part of your orchestra, as part of your own journey with meditation, that it's not about being zen. It's actually, we don't want to be relaxed. We need tension and release, but we need to be aware of the tension and the release and where they're needed in the phrasing.
Yes, totally. And now as a teacher, how lucky are those students to be under your guidance? Because now recently, it's been almost 2 years now that you're...
Yeah, I just finished my second year.
Already? Wow. And how was it for you to move from Quebec to BC? What brought you there? I know what brought me there, and I'm so excited, and I'm so feeling, so lucky to be in BC as well. So what was your path going there now?
I remember a colleague, a now colleague of mine that was a colleague at Domaine Forget, because I was starting to teach. at McGill, I was a lecturer, and I was sometimes subbing for the viola professor who, when he was on half sabbatical, I would like take some students. And so I was starting like as a very baby pedagogue, right? And at Domaine is where I had multiple like responsibility, teaching chamber music and viola, and getting to get my hands in more things. And there's a colleague of mine at Domaine, couple days after I gave birth to my second child. So I was like super mommy brain, super hormones. And then they sent the job posting. And then I was thinking, okay, couldn't have come like 2 weeks ago, you know, when I was done with my concerts. But I asked my now establishment, UBC, you know, I just gave birth. Can I like just gather my thoughts for a few weeks and send in my material in 2 weeks? You know, like for applying for such position, you need like a teaching philosophy statement. I had 1 semester of university teaching experience behind the belt. So it was, I had not a lot to write about, but I had a lot of other pedagogy instinct, like yoga and so on. So I went to McGill with my daughter in the car seat, and I attended various workshops on how to write a cover letter. I had never written a cover letter, how to write your teaching philosophy statements. And then I had some one-on-one appointments with people who work to help you for academic posts. I had no experience. I was a baby. and they really helped me through the process. And I tell you, I'm sure it made a big difference. Just to be guided in the process and to be able to send my text to someone who would review. And because I'm sure there are many people who were very competent who applied. And then throughout the whole process, when they to campus, and I walked on campus, and it's one of the most beautiful campus in Canada, if not the world. It's just, and so in touch with the First Nations, and you can see with all the artwork that is commissioned. And even when I played my recital, at the end it said, you know, that we were on the territory of the Musqueam Nations, and it was my first time being very connected with the community that was so supportive, and that was really inclusive and mindful about diversity. And I just felt so proud already to be advanced in the process, and I just had fun because I had nothing to lose. In Sanskrit, there's a word to describe preconceived ideas about something. It's called samskara. So I had no samskara about what the process would be. I was just like naive and doing my best. And that's always when you just do your best that it ends up working out, right? So I just did that, and I fell in love with the campus. I already, like, we were having lunch with some colleagues, so they get to know you. And I was like, it was like we were friends for a long time. We connected, everything was great. And I could feel that it was a good fit, but then you just have to wait, and they give you a phone call. And then our whole family transferred to BC. And I think I underestimated, like, we were so excited that we didn't foresee any challenges. But, you know, the first year we had no network, and, you know, it's a pretty intense job, as also when you add performances to that and touring. And, you know, we felt isolated, and then there was a pandemic, so you feel isolated on top of isolated. So, but we feel super privileged that we're all doing what we want to do, and we have our little nest as a family, and now we're in this beautiful home with a great view. So BC has so much outdoorsy romances, you know, like it's too good to be true to live here almost.
Yeah, it's beautiful everywhere you look at. And then
in Kamloops, I had great walks, you know, to get the adrenaline better. And I was just like everywhere in BC. I've been to the Kootenays, you know, the Kamloops, some of the islands, the Galiano Islands. It's just breathtaking. Of course, you want to live here. And then I don't imagine that a lot of people, once you're here and living here, I don't think a lot of people come back.
That's what I heard. Yes, it's like once you move.
I keep hearing that, and I'm like, I believe you.
Yeah, indeed. And thinking about and speaking of beautiful landscape and so on, now might be the moment in which we could have a little bit of a teaser from Peteris Basque concerto, viola concerto with the first movement, and then we get to discuss a little bit more about this fabulous concerto, Marina.
And read some comments.
Yes. So just a little teaser. So Marina, what could you express regarding this concerto you love so much? And thanks for sharing with me, because now I'm really in love with that concerto and can't wait to do it again.
I know, it's so fulfilling, because I really think that he dived, Peteris Basque, the composer, dived into the vulnerability of the instrument. And he had written extensively for other strings instrument. He's himself a double bass player. He had written several violin concertante work prior to this one, and cello works as well. But you know, I think he saved the viola for the last because he wanted to be better. You know, he wanted to be up to the task,
to the level.
Exactly. But what, you know, we were discussing before the performance about his love for nature, and he's a great activist for environmental causes, but also he's very spiritual being, and you can hear the selflessness, you know, this larger than life landscapes. And I'm always surprised about the latitude also of Latvia. It's more south than I think it is, but they have similar forests than we have in Montreal. So I think we can, as Borealis forest people, we can relate to that vibe, you know. And yeah, it's funny because I actually I wrote to him a few times, and we were corresponding in very creative ways, because he only speaks Latvian and Russian and some German, and I speak English, French, and Italian, so we can't really communicate with with words. But now we were in touch through Shot, the editor, but now I'm actually in touch with his daughter. And so a few days after our recording of this performance, they got back to me about some questions I had.
Oh no! So did we do wrong now?
No, because I had cut some errors in the score, and I had cut some errors, and then I did as I thought, and then it was right.
I mean, yeah, I circled, you recall? I had like circled, Marina, here, there's this that is weird, there's this, and then you were like, yeah, he said that like we need to trust ourselves into this.
Yeah,
so we're fine.
He said that we could make our own, and because I had access, my agent is Barbara Scales. She's very intertwined with Shot. She has many connections there. So they were always, every time there was an update, they would send me, but I have the original. And so I've been, with his approval, I've been keeping a lot of the first version because it's harder. and some things were simplified. And I think, sometimes it depends on the viola. And my viola, it could work. So I just implemented some of these original ideas, and they were worth the extra time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I mean, what else could we share? Because now we've been seeing a little excerpt from the first movement, but outside of these beautiful landscape, there's something relating a little bit more about when you started music, doing folk songs as well.
Yeah, I think that can connect. Like it's always good to connect back to your roots and your origins. And well, we spoke mostly about the melancholic character of the piece and the singing quality, but of course there's if there's a second clip that we can show, or if you watch the show, you can actually see that it's quite groovy at times and quite earthy and folky, and that to start with. So for me, that character, I kind of have it in my pocket, but when I played, I had a Zoom lesson with my teacher in London, David Takeno. He's the same teacher of Yolanda Bruno, who was a soloist. Yeah, and he had taught also Anthony Marwood a long time ago, and he also recorded the Vasque violin concerto. And he's such an amazing musician and pedagogue. And he asked me, what's the latitude of Latvia? And of course, I didn't know. And then he asked me, did you eat any Latvian food? And have you heard the language? Have you heard their folk music? I'm like, no, I don't know any of this. I'm unprepared. And of course, he didn't care about how I played the concerto. He wanted me to know all these extra things. And so he sent me some, he asked one of his students from Latvia to send some folk music. And so he shared with me. And then I was listening to interviews with Vasque just to hear his inflection. And when he speaks, he has tremendous tension. He's very muscular, and you can tell that he has a lot of tension. I don't know how else to say. But then when he talked about the viola, he kind of like liquefied, and he became really like relaxed, and yeah, there was like a letting go in his body language. And so I knew that I needed to play with both and juxtapose both characters. And often in the orchestra response, like, I'll be very like easygoing, and then the orchestra is super like tempest-like, and vice versa. And then we needed always to have both. And I think any great work of art has both and gives you vertigo. And Schubert, for example, is a great example of that.
Mm-hmm. And going into more relaxed things outside of music, I'm always impressed because you also have other hobbies in which you're super talented. So after yoga, of course, Marina has other skills. She's doing a lot of incredible fiber arts, such as knitting. And now I would like to order my own toque, if I may, Marina, because I've been seeing your pictures and it's amazing. So maybe we can request Ryan to show some of the things you are able to do while maintaining a teacher position, a soloist and chamber music career, being a mother, and all these things.
Well, a lot of people, when they're expecting children, they start knitting, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's you want to keep them warm. And this is Lucien, my oldest.
So beautiful. Yeah.
He's such a poser. I didn't teach him how to do this.
I mean, this picture is perfect. I was just like, this is magazine. There. I mean, you need to have another website for your works. Yeah.
But yeah, so I started this. This is a very special project because my grandmother taught me how to knit, but she was also a spinner. And so the darker wool that you see is her hand spun, and the blue one is mine.
Wow.
I learned to spin to be able to, because I didn't have enough yarn to make a full sweater, so I needed to add more something
color?
else.
Okay.
Exactly, like a contrast color. And so I learned how to spin. I bought a spinning wheel, and there's a pandemic, so I have less concerts and I'm restless and my hands always need to be busy making some things. Wow. So either if I'm not on, like, I don't want to be on my iPhone, so I just knit. And yeah, so I'm testing a lot of pattern for designers internationally. Like, this is a pattern from a Quebec designer, but nice. I've tested for American desingers or designers in Europe, and I'm just so intense about everything that I do. I really annoy myself that I went deep into this rabbit hole. And this is beautiful wool from Sweden, this unspun, so it's very fragile and it can break. Like, if you just here, I have it here actually. You can see that, like, if I just do this,
wow,
it completely breaks. So when you knit with it, you have to be. This is the swatch that I did before doing the sweater. So you have to be very gentle and not tense. And so I think it's really great to learn about posture and I went into that rabbit hole.
And while you do this, do you think about music? Or is it okay? No, it's totally like I'm emptying my mind and just relaxing on the process of what is going on with my hands.
It's so funny that you asked me this question, because today I was researching about flow, my doctoral exams, and there's a chapter about flow in music, and there's a chapter about flow, just because flow is just about an optimal experience. So flow is just being focused, is being
flow. Yeah.
Not focusing on self-doubts, like, just you're doing the action in the
optimal way of doing things, intuitive way, without effortless kind of way of performing.
Exactly, but to get there, there's several steps that needs to be taken, right? And it's kind of, there's a recipe for flow. You can recreate it and you can set yourself up to experience it. And then there is a paragraph about knitting, and it said, so people were happiest when they were just talking to one another, when they gardened, knitted, or were involved in a hobby. All of these activities require few material resources, but they demanded a relatively high investment of psychic energy. And that's really what it is. It's like muscle memory for me, but I need to keep paying attention, especially if I'm testing a pattern that has been written. I need to see if there's mistakes in it. And so it kind of keeps me on my toes. But while I'm doing this, I'm not ruminating about, like, oh, this person said so-and-so, and maybe I should be mad, or like, oh, that passage, like, I didn't do it so well in the rehearsal, what will happen? Like, when I'm doing this, I'm just
your hamster is at ease while you're doing this. Your hamster is at ease and just, like, not overthinking things.
Exactly. It's just a way for me to center. It's another, like, it's just as yoga is, or running, or being present with my children, like, just, it's another hobby to practice flow.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marina, for this. Now I'm looking at all the tasks of things I should try at one point in my life. Now there's epic challenges to come, I guess, for me in this. We'll see. We received some questions from our audience. So Marina, before we end this wonderful conversation, we have a question from Sue Kane, who's asking, what are Marina's favorite viola strings? What would you?
That's a good question. I've tried many. And when I first started playing viola, I used the Obbligato, made by Pirazzi. They're very chocolatey, and they're the ones that Thibeault Zimmerman uses, and she's my violist. Actually, I named my second child after Thibeault. So I use this, but I I've been playing on quite dark instruments, and so they actually needed more shine, more brillance, a little bit more sun. So since then, I've been using Eva Perazzi. So I've been using Eva Perazzi for a long time now, and I recently changed viola, and I didn't even bother to try other strings. My bow arm loves the Eva Perazzis. And for the A string, I use the Yargar medium.
And for our audience, regular audience, how often do you actually need to change those strings?
Pre-pandemic,
yeah, exactly.
Pre-pandemic, I would change them maybe every 6 months or so. Actually, I did this too during the pandemic because I had some recordings and some online performances to record, and I wanted my viola to sound good. So, yeah, I think every 6 months is good for viola. Violin, you might need to change a little bit more often, but they're less expensive, so it's kind of.
So, did it ever happen to you in concert that a string?
Yes, a C string, the big one.
Oh wow! Is
yeah,
it like more rare that the C string would. Okay, and what happened?
Twice. Once I was playing a Bartok quartet when I was in school, and my C string exploded.
You were really intense, even more, I guess.
It said ruvido, which means like savage, like just, so that's what I did. And my string
for that extra, that the few seconds, I guess. So that was in concert?
Yes.
So what did you do in this case?
I have always like a set, and you just interrupt the performance and be sorry folks, I'll be right back. Yeah. And when I was a violinist, actually, when I was tuning my E string, it hit me like in my third eye, and I think that's why I didn't like violin, because it was really pinchy. Like there's a lot of tension, and I was like tuning it, and then I think that's maybe why I was scarred from the violin and didn't want anything to do with it.
Oh wow! Yeah, I guess you can be traumatized from such an
violent.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
I see someone I know in the comment, Nayiri. Dina, we both did a women leadership program. Well, you did a leadership program at Yale. Nayiri and we were classmates at Yale.
The other program, you did it together?
Yeah. So she's here today.
Oh, hi, Nayiri.
She's a former colleague from Yale. Doesn't that feel so fancy to say that?
Yeah, exactly.
When I have an important meeting, I have my Yale swag. I have my mug.
Yes, the mug. Great. I mean, we're already at the end, Marina. Thank you so much for everything. Oh, I see Nayiri is answering now. Yes.
And thank you for Sandy and Sylvia for your comments.
Yes. Thank you so much for all the time you've been so generous. We've been learning so many things, and it's been such an inspiring conversation for me to have with you. I hope it's been the same for our audience. Obviously, we hope people will get the occasion to watch Voilà Viola's concert, also featuring works of Grieg and Nino Rota. This concert is available up to May 22nd, so you have time. You can watch it with a glass of wine. You can watch it in the morning in your pajamas. Any kind of content is good with this, so we hope you're going to like it as much as we had fun actually sharing and recording this content.
And Dina, the work that you do with the orchestra is tremendous. I didn't hear them before you arrived, but I know that they're really with you, and it's beautiful to witness, an orchestra in BC doing so well, putting so many programs in the pandemic together. I believe you guys are not only, ahead of the curve, but the orchestra is actually a really precious ensemble in Canada, and I'm really happy I got to collaborate with you guys.
Thank you so much, Marina. But for this, I need to share it with all the fabulous team at KSO, for sure. Daniel, Ryan, Sue, Evan. I mean, they've been doing a fabulous job over those several months now. But yes, we are quite proud of the amount of activities we've been able to have with our audience. But you see, as you've been describing, BC, supportive, welcoming, this is why I feel things can be possible. That's why I felt so lucky when I arrived in Kamloops and saw the potential of this fabulous orchestra. So yes, I feel super lucky to be in such a wonderful place too.
A great match.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so good to be in Kamloops for sure. So for everyone, we hope you will be attending our concert. attending our concert, watching our concerts. And we also look forward at one point this pandemic be over so we can really see each other doing live concerts at one point. Thank you so much for being with us for this evening. Bye-bye. Thanks, Marina.